To the NASCAR Hotspot podcast. I'm your host Troy, joined by Chris, and we have our guest for this week. It is David Salazar. If I said that correctly, I believe I did.
Correct.
Um, he works in the wind tunnel at Joe Gibbs Racing, and that's pretty much like the basis of it. Tell us more about kind of what you do and about yourself.
So I've been out actually working in the NASCAR industry about 17 years. I worked in one of the wind tunnels for 10 years before I went to Joe Gibbs. There's a wind tunnel called Aerodyne. It's in Mooresville. And we tested that one, and then we also tested a wind tunnel called Windshear. And they're out of Concord. Both tunnels are about 20 to 30 minutes away from the shop. But we do most of our testing there. Typically, we're in the wind tunnel at least once a week. So I grew up in New Mexico on a pecan farm, of all things. My dad had a garage, and then shifted into an auto parts store, and then we had a couple auto parts stores. So growing up, me and my brothers, we all worked on cars, worked for my dad in the farm and at the family business. So I was just always surrounded by cars. So I just kind of figured, follow my passion and keep working on them. And I always wanted to be in racing. So I just kind of continued to climb up the ladder until I landed a job at Joe Gibbs.
Hell yeah, that's awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah. Troy, like you look like you have already something to say.
Yeah.
I'll let you
All
go.
right. So you mentioned kind of briefly that you liked racing growing up.
Yep.
Was like working in a wind tunnel, like in a shop, like your first thought when kind of trying to get into racing?
No, I mean, it started young. My dad was really big in the Indy 500. So, my youngest memories, probably 5, 6 years old, I remember, getting up on Sunday, sitting on the couch watching the Indy 500 with him. And so ever since I was a kid, I just kind of gravitated towards that. I raced motocross, shifter karts. I was involved in drag racing at an early age, involved in dirt track racing at an early age. And, me personally, I wanted to drive the cars. That was kind of my passion and is what I wanted to do. But, I really didn't have a lot of guidance growing up as far as, how to get sponsorship and how to basically go about maintaining a rider or getting a ride. Working after school at high school, I couldn't afford to get a car, but, I got as far as I could get realistically. And then one of my friends, him and his brother continued to race. So I worked for them, and I was a crew chief on one of their IMCA modified teams through college. And so I've always just tried to position myself, it's like, well, if I couldn't drive in the sport or, drive, what could I do? And it was like, well, maybe I'll just go to engineering school and, see if I can at least be involved in the sport some way. And that's kind of what I did. I just kind of created a secondary path to do something in the sport.
Oh yeah, I say it seems like we see a lot of people get involved in the sport and maybe not be able to do the racing itself, like you said, once you get to a certain point.
Yep.
But take us through a little bit of that shifter karts and dirt biking, because that seems like a huge part of the whole western side of the country itself.
It is. It was fun. I mean, those are probably some of my best days. I say, we had a lot of fun racing around. We didn't go too far. It was mainly like Arizona, Texas, New Mexico, and they had a go-kart series. I was more into motocross, and that was kind of my passion. Kind of to back up a little bit, being a big IndyCar fan as a kid, like that was, that's where I wanted to go when I grew up. It was like that was it. And back in the 90s when IndyCar and when kart and IRL split, it kind of ruined the series for me, and I really lost interest in that. So then it was, I got into motocross, and I think I was watching World of Outlaw racing a lot. And I really hadn't watched any NASCAR racing until 2001. That was my first NASCAR race that I actually sat down and watched the whole race start to finish. My parents having auto parts stores. Initially we had Big A Auto Parts, which probably a lot of people, and you guys are probably too young to remember this, but Big A Auto Parts was a big auto part chain. And in the late 90s, the corporation went bankrupt. So we had to find a new parts supplier. So at the time, Napa Auto Parts came to my dad, and they wanted to work a deal to try to get him on board with Napa. So we did. This is probably 99-ish, 2000-ish. And then, my mom woke up one Sunday and was like, Michael Waltrip and this new Napa car going to be racing the Daytona 500. And I was just like, I'm not, wasn't really into NASCAR. So I was like, okay, I've got nothing else going on. Like, what's the harm? I'll watch it. So I sat down and watched that first race. And I mean, I'll tell you what, like after that race, I was hooked. I was like, okay, this was a lot cooler than I thought it was going to be. I really enjoyed the race. And it was one of those, it was the race that Dale Earnhardt died. So I think just having something that big happen, watching the first race. And of course, I knew, names. I knew Dale Earnhardt, Rusty Wallace, I knew all the big names. I just didn't really pay attention to it. But after that, I started paying a lot of attention to it. So, racing, backing up, then, not going to shifter carts and dirt racing, wanting to do that, it takes a lot of money to get into the position where you can, either get noticed or try to get a ride. And, I think my parents, they were more heavily involved in the auto parts store, and they were, they weren't really into the racing stuff that I was. So I just didn't have the guidance into like, how do you go about, taking the next step? How do you go about getting sponsorship? How do you do all that stuff? So, it's kind of just up to me at that point to kind of keep going. But yeah, the shifter carts are fun. I mean, I had a blast. It was kind of an outlaw class, they called it. So there's really no rules. You had to be a single cylinder, and it had to have go-kart tires and go-kart chassis. And that was really it. There was no rate restrictions, no horsepower restrictions. So I had a 250cc shifter cart. And it was kind of homemade, because it was a dirt cart. So it wasn't, that you see the asphalt carts, but it was, I had to make one of those engines onto a dirt chassis because they're heavily offset, because we're just, always turning left on those. And I think it was Animas, New Mexico one year. And the race, I think, kind of got rained out because it rained all day, but we were able to get on the track and hot lap. And there was a cop there with a radar gun, and he clocked me at 117 mile an hour on the straightaway. So that cart was fun. I mean, I had a blast in that cart. I hate that I ever sold it.
Yeah, that's faster than I've ever gone in a regular street car, which we're not going to discuss that much. Yeah. But yeah, that's quite the speed, because those tracks couldn't have been that big either.
They weren't big at all. No, they weren't. And it was basically just a lot of horsepower. And if you could get the track to tack up enough to get the power down, because that was part of it, is you couldn't even use all the throttle a lot of times. But that track, definitely was a bigger track, and it had the traction. So I was able to put down some good laps. And then actually I broke my chassis that race. So I think I ran 4 laps, got that speed, and then I broke the cart. So I had to haul it back home and fix it.
Yikes.
Wow.
I'll say Troy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I always ask this question to any guest that we have. And you mentioned that you mainly watched open wheel racing and some more World of Outlaws growing up. Is there like a certain specific driver that you followed and idolized and really have always been attached to, kind of?
Yeah. So at a young age, when I was big into Indy, so the greatest thing to come out of New Mexico back then was the Unsers. So Al Unser Jr., Senior, Bobby Unser, like that was just like, man, it was so cool to be, because New Mexico is not really known for anything. We don't have any sports teams, there's not a lot there. So just to have them kind of in our backyard was like really cool for me. Rick Mears, Danny Sullivan, like I couldn't get enough of those guys, just watching them. And I thought it was really cool to see that stuff. And then the World of Outlaws, obviously like Kinzer and all the big, the big names back in the day, just loved to watch them. But yeah, NASCAR, I really didn't have anybody I watched until early 2000s. And that's kind of when I got into that.
I'll say, well, take us through SA. You said you were the crew chief for, I think you said your buddy's modified or cousin's modified.
My buddy. Yeah. So it was Rhett Solopek and Anton Solopek. His older brother started racing the modifieds, well before we did. He's a few years older. So we'd go out and help him. And, it really just started out as, scraping mud off the cars and, keeping them clean and, just trying to stay out of the way initially, I was really wanting to learn, but I didn't want to be in the way. So they're just like, well, here's a scraper, go scrape the car and wipe it down, make sure it's, good to go. And then it turned into, doing tire pressures and we go to the shop and help Anton work on his car. And eventually just kept evolving. Rhett kept racing, and he decided to move up into the modifieds. So at that point, I kind of broke off and went with him. He was out of the same shop, and obviously we tried to help each other out when we could, but we kept stuff a little separate. So it was neat. We were just kind of some punk kids that really didn't know what we were doing, and we're asking a lot of questions and just trying to get through it. But I mean, there was a while there we were running like top 5 every weekend, so we were pretty competitive. His brother was winning a lot. We were, it's funny because he still remembers the 3 times we beat him. He gives us a hard time about that, but we told him, we'd show up in an open trailer, and they'd have all these nice trailers and everything, and we'd just show up in an open trailer and go spank everybody. So we thought that was pretty funny back then.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I say we recorded with Doug Coby last week, so we definitely got a bit of the modified side of it from his perspective for sure. Where we're gonna have both the interview with you and then the interview with him for the same episode when this gets released, usually tomorrow. But yeah, so we definitely got to understand a bit more of the modified scene than what a lot of people do.
Dirt modified.
He is still asphalt modified, so it's definitely 2 different forms of racing.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot.
Very similar, but dirt to asphalt, very very different the way you approach it, I guess.
Oh yeah, but then we talk about crew chiefing. What got you into the door of NASCAR then from there? What led to that?
Kind of funny story. So I mean, I knowing that's what I wanted to do when I grew up, and went to college for it. I was kind of at a turn, like at a fork in the road, I guess, because I knew the only way to come out here. So having my parents had the Napa Auto Parts stores, and having that tie, my very first NASCAR race I went to was the Brickyard 400. We went with Napa. I forget what it was. It was, I think we were, I don't know, top 3 in the Western United States for filter sales or something. So we ended up getting a trip out there, and we got to stay in a suite, which is nice. Michael Waltrip came in and talked to the Napa owners, so I kind of pulled him aside and picked his brain a little bit. I'm super nervous at this point trying to talk to him, but I tried to get through it, and it was just like, this is what I've been doing my whole life, and this is what I want to do. Can you give me any advice on how to where do I go from here? And honestly, I was trying to probe him because at the time he had they call it a Bush team at the time. So I was trying to see if I could get involved in his team somehow. But anyways, he basically said, if you're really serious about working in the sport, you just have to make the move to Mooresville. He said, nobody's really going to talk to you on the phone. Nobody's going to take a resume through the mail. You really just have to go beat down everybody's door to do it. So it was a little discouraging because it is so far from New Mexico. It's not a quick drive. So after college, I ended up in Phoenix for about a year, thinking that maybe I can find something closer to home to do instead. And I had a buddy that his name's J.R. Patton. We kind of raced with him growing up. He was a lot younger than us, so I didn't get a race with him. But he was racing sprint cars when he was like 13 years old or something. And he ended up out here racing. Well, I helped him. I think we did an ARCA race in California after college. So still trying to kind of figure out how to get my foot in the door for that. That was a West Coast race, and then he ended up getting a truck ride through a team called Fiddleback Racing, and it was more like just a limited schedule. So he moved out here, and he knew this is what I wanted to do. So he called, and he's like, "Hey, come out here. You can stay on my couch as long as you need, but you need to get out here and start talking to people and just try to network." So I'm like, okay. So I set aside like a month. I think it was August. I knew that because I missed my brother's birthday. So I flew out here in August, and I went to all the teams, all the shops, passed out resumes, tried to talk to whoever I could. And the funny thing was, in college, I did a project where I did a little project in a scale wind tunnel that we had at the university. And I was like, man, that'd be so cool if there was a wind tunnel that tested nothing but race cars. And at the time, there was no wind tunnel that existed. The manufacturers have their wind tunnels, but they're mainly automotive. And then there's some aeronautical wind tunnels that do like airplane testing, and occasionally they'll do race car testing. But there was the tunnel in Mooresville that opened up, Aerodyne, and they opened up about the time I graduated. So that's like the job that I really wanted to try to get. I didn't even know what I could do, there. I didn't even know what positions they might have available. So I kind of saved that one to the very end because I was, really nervous about getting in there. And I walked in and I asked for Gary Akers, the owner of the wind tunnel. And typically, I try to do my homework on who to ask for, try to position myself to get the resume to the right person. And you walk into a big building and there's, receptionists, and they tell you, well, we'll give you, we'll get the resume to who it needs to get to. And you don't get to talk to anybody. But when I walked in the wind tunnel, I was like, is Gary Aker here? And he said, yeah, that's me. And I'm like, whoa. So I'm already like thrown back, like, wow, I'm actually talking to the man. So we talked and kind of had a little mini interview on the spot. And it was a lucky situation because they were just talking about hiring another operator. So it's kind of one of those, right place, right time scenarios. I talked to him for, a few hours and it went well. I came back to New Mexico and I didn't hear anything for probably 3 weeks. And I was pretty discouraged. I was like, man, I thought it went better than that. And he finally called, offered me a job, and I packed up and I headed out. And, the rest is history. I've been doing the same thing for about 17 years.
That's awesome. I
pretty
say,
fun, yeah.
yeah. So that's another thing that you hear about with a lot of, especially with getting into NASCAR. It's a lot of everyone sleeping on each other's couches for sure.
It is. It's a lot about network. And when I worked at the wind tunnel, I actually we had 2 wind tunnels and I ran one of them, and I'd get a lot of resumes, from college kids and stuff. And I kind of try to give them the same advice that people gave me is like, if you really want to do it, if you really want to work in the sport, you just have to get out here and try to network. That's really what it's about.
That's definitely what I plan on doing. I'm actually going to school right now, and a whole different level of the whole sport in general, but I'm going to school for sportscasting right now. I'm like,
okay.
Some of the guys are starting to get a little older.
Hey,
they need some youth, right? Yep, yeah, they need some youth. But it's definitely it's been fun so far.
Nice.
But Troy, do you got anything right now?
Yeah, so let's just kind of skip to 3 years of being. I just had a brain fart. My bad.
Are you looking for?
Let's skip through the years of your experience in a wind tunnel, and what was it like? What was the process of like getting into Joe Gibbs Racing and like all that?
So the process, I would say, working in the wind tunnel definitely helped because I didn't have an aero background. I got a degree in mechanical engineering. I did take some fluid classes, which kind of touched on aero, but not really. So Gary Aker and a guy named Gary Romberg. If you do a little research on Gary Romberg, you'll find some cool stuff on him. He worked for Chrysler for a long time. Both of them, Gary Aker started in the GM wind tunnel, and Gary Romberg helped design the Chrysler wind tunnel. So everything I learned, I kind of learned from them, just asking a lot of questions. They taught me, they taught me so much stuff, a lot of stuff I can't even remember. They taught me so much stuff. And they're the type of people, they would just, they would totally wipe down a whiteboard and just start writing equations. And if you want to do this, this is the equation for it. I mean, they could just spit that stuff out like it was nothing to them. So, I definitely learned a lot from them. And over the years, there were several teams that kind of approached me, asking if I would, want to switch jobs or go work for them. And it's the nice thing about working at the wind tunnel was it was a job security for me. It's like I knew that as long as I wanted to be there, I had a job. And in racing, especially NASCAR, it's very cutthroat. One day you have a job, the next day you don't. So I didn't want to be a part of that process of just, constantly moving from team to team. So I turned a few jobs down. Red Bull was one I almost took, and I'm glad I didn't because it was the same thing. I was asking about a contract, and they were like, well, we'd do a year, but we don't know what's going to happen after that. And sure enough, the team folded. So I'm, glad I didn't take, didn't get that job. And Gary was nice enough that he, I would talk to him. He was very open. And if, like when Red Bull was asking, I said, I talked to Gary and I said, hey, look, Red Bull wants to talk to me. I'd like to just at least hear him out. And he was 100% fine with it. So we had a good communication on that side. And then my boss now, his name's Patrick Knupp. He actually called Gary and was looking for somebody And after he told Gary what he was looking for, Gary called me in his office and he's like, "Hey, Patrick Gibbs is looking for, this candidate." And he told me what they were looking for. And he said, I think you'd be a good fit for it. So, my former boss is kind of the one that helped me get the job in the Gibbs. So I was very fortunate to have somebody like that, pushed me enough and was helpful enough to help me kind of, progress my career along. So it was really neat to work for somebody like that. And then I knew people that worked at Gibbs, and same thing. It was like, they'd been there 10, 15 years, and it's like, man, this place is great. They care about the employees. They don't like to, they don't like the turnaround. So I felt like it was a good situation to be in. I felt like I could have longevity there. So I reached out to Patrick, and, we had an interview, and kind of the same thing. Rest is history. I've been doing about almost 7 years now with Gibbs.
Yeah, that's great. So like, how different was like the atmosphere from where you were to Gibbs? Like, was there like kind of a more like competitive atmosphere? Was it kind of like, how was it?
So I've been fortunate too in the fact that I've, at the wind tunnel, I worked with a really good group of guys. And then when I got to Gibbs, it's like, equally just as good a group of guys. So it was really an easy transition to come in. I felt like everybody just, welcomed me right away. But it was a lot of work. I mean, it was, the wind tunnel, Gary was kind of big on, we're working 40 hours a week. And then we get to Gibbs, and it's like, we work 6 to 5, and, sometimes we're on the weekends trying to catch up. So it was definitely a lot of work for me. But it's same thing, it's so rewarding, because it's like, my whole life, it's like, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to work on, cup cars, and here I am working on cup cars. So, to me, it's been a job that I've never woke up in the morning and not want to be at work. Like I wake up every morning and I want to go. I don't care if it's a 10-hour day, 12-hour day. I mean, we've had 24-hour days in the wind tunnel where, I'm up for 24 hours, literally testing in the wind tunnel. And to me, it's just like, this is awesome. Like, I love it. So that side was a little different. The competitive side is, it's different from the wind tunnel, because, at the wind tunnel, we're just providing data, but it gives, we're actually looking for stuff. We're looking for speed. So that was a little different, but it's a lot of people there, just, ex-racers. So for me, it was just, it's just being around competitive people, which I'm super competitive too, even with myself. So it was nice to have that. And it's nice to see, like, when we find stuff in the wind tunnel, or we find some performance, we don't have like a yearly report or a quarterly report. I mean, we have weekly reports. When we find something, we take to the track, and we know right then, did this work or not. So it's neat. It's neat to see that your work is like just getting out there and getting on track right away. So that's been neat to see.
Yeah, and how was like I'm sorry to like steal your question, or not your question, but like, where you're gonna say
no,
something
it all
first.
depends on if you're about to steal my question or not. We'll see.
Nah, I don't think. So first off, how big was like the learning curve? Like, how much more did you learn at Gibbs than from what you were at before?
It wasn't a super big learning curve, because it was what I was normally used to doing. And in a wind tunnel, I was just now at a team, and then I was responsible for helping them go to the wind tunnel. So it's already stuff I understood. It was neat, because there's the resources at Gibbs are a lot deeper. We have machine shops, we've got 3D printers. So it's like, whatever you want to do, you can kind of dream it up and do it. I mean, within reason. But that was neat, because at the wind tunnel, and it gives to them, and it costs, you still have to think of cost, but, we didn't have that stuff at the wind tunnel. So anytime we wanted to develop or build or design something, we had to go to an outside party to get stuff machined, get parts made. Where it Gibbs, it's like, if I need to go weld something up, they've got 10 welders over there to go do it. They got machines we can use. They got drill presses, lathes. I mean, they got paint booths. So anything you need, it's like, you can get it done. So that was really neat to do, because you could just do a lot of cool stuff.
And then, since Troy didn't steal my question, I really thought he was going to go that route, but it does kind of relate to it in a sense. Or if you guys have been able to get your hands on the next gen car, how different is that compared to the Gen 6?
Yep. So all the teams have now got their hands on one. It's definitely a different beast than the Gen 6 car. they're still working out a lot of bugs in it. We'll see what happens next year. But they're taking it, and I'm not sure how much you guys know about the car, but basically what they're doing is they're taking a lot of the ingenuity out of the team's hands. So now really what we're doing is we're buying parts and pieces from vendors and basically bolting a car together and taking it to the track. So they're, NASCAR is always trying to keep the competition, level in their playing field. That in their mind, they would love to have just 40 cars on track that are 40 identical cars. And then it's up to the driver to have to be able to perform. But in anything that we do, like with racing, if we have a budget, we're going to try to figure out a way, to get performance. If they ban wind tunnel testing, they're just going to take that budget and put it into CFD or find some way to find a performance. So, the cream always rises to the top. The best teams with the money and the best people and resources are definitely going to be the top teams, every weekend. And it shows, every time they change the rules package and they try to make it more level for the playing field, you see the same teams running up front. So I feel like it doesn't matter what they give us to race. They could give us a soapbox derby car. We're going to go to work on it, and the best team's going to come out ahead. So it's kind of the same situation with this new car coming out, I believe.
So it definitely looks like it's going to create some. Maybe it doesn't create as much of the fun opportunity for teams, but it'll create it for the fans at least to.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, that's
everything.
the game. Obviously, we all want them to succeed. We want this car to be a success. So we want to see it do well on the track. But it's one of those things, without a lot of testing, we just don't know. Once you get a lot of cars out there running close proximity to each other, we don't know how it's going to react. So they definitely need to get the cars on track with other drivers and so we can start working on how to dial it in.
So I'm sure you guys will be calculating each and every move that's made once we do get multiple cars on track all at the same time and all that.
Yep.
Troy, you got anything?
I had a question. I forgot it.
You forgot it. Second time.
Second time. So how many guys are you working with in a wind tunnel? How many guys can you bounce ideas off of and kind of work with?
So now it's kind of funny. We actually have a roster where only so many people can go to the wind tunnel. So they've limited us on how many people we can actually take to the tunnel, which is I think 7 people. So it's a pretty small group that we work with. But you have guys that kind of specialize in their own thing. You've got fabricators, you guys that can have, do programming. We get a lot of data and try and understand that data. We have to analyze it pretty quick. So you have guys that can put it up on servers, and you guys can do other things that help out on the wind tunnel to gather data on the data side, the data collection side. I do a lot of instrumentation, so we can get a lot of pressure tap data. Sky's the limit on that stuff, as far as what information you can get. And then you got to work with teams on, what are they looking for? What do the drivers need? Is there something we can do to help them on track? Find a certain grip level or balance level that they're looking for. So there's a lot of information that goes on during the week to try to figure out what we're going to do. And then obviously working within the rules.
Say you mentioned rules, and we've had many different rules packages over the past 7 years since you said, that's how long you said you've been at Gibbs.
Yes.
Which one do you think was your favorite to get your hands on in there?
And I think back in 15 when they were kind of going back and forth between the low downforce and high downforce packages, I feel like we did really well that year, and it was just I like the low downforce high horsepower package. I think that's just, if you want to give if you want it down to the driver, make him earn it. These new 550 packages where they're just who can hold it down on the floor. I mean, that's not racing. It's, it's high speed chess. Give these guys horsepower, give them low downforce, and let them have at it. That's the way I feel about it.
That I think that high speed chess sums it up very well.
Yeah.
In terms of we've we definitely aren't fans of the 550 package and have shared our displeasure many of times.
Yes, no, it's Daytona and Talladega are kind of their own beast, and I enjoy the plate racing. I think it's interesting. It's I think it's just because it's more intense the whole time. It's not, you don't have to watch 20 laps and wait for the last 20 laps to see them race again. I feel like there's just something always going on. And that's kind of their intent with the 550 package. I think is just to try to get pack racing, at all the tracks, and it's just not as good as Daytona and Talladega. So I feel like they need to kind of go back to the high horsepower, low downforce, make them work for it, make tires wear off quick to where tires matter. The pit strategy stuff, I hate when somebody takes 2 tires and then goes and wins the race. It's like, okay, good job in the pit, but you maybe weren't the fastest car on the track. You just got a good call at the end. So I like to see it settled out on the track.
Yeah, we've definitely seen the fair share of strategies work out in the 550 package, but no, the 750. I mean, we saw it just yesterday. We've seen it at a couple of tracks so far with the 750 package. You got to be up on the wheel at all times and managing your stuff for sure.
Yep. Make them earn their paycheck. Those guys get paid a lot of money.
Yeah. It's insane.
Yep.
Sure, you look like
I don't know.
No,
I gotta process something.
You gotta process something.
Yeah, I gotta think.
Oh man. No, I don't know that. Are you?
Who knows Alex?
Oh, I do.
Troy does. Yeah.
Okay, so I met Alex a few times. My wife, that's her side of the family. So I just saw him that weekend, a couple weekends ago. We're at a birthday party. We're in town. So he's about what you guys do. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we used to live across the street from Alex and Sheila and all them.
Okay.
So we're really close to them. Mainly my family. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're quite a few states apart. We're
yes.
I'm from Michigan and I've known Troy for a couple of years now. So that's why.
Oh, so you're in Michigan now?
Yeah. I'm in Michigan right now. Yeah.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
Definitely
to do the podcast like this.
Oh yeah. It's definitely it was something that we pondered for like a couple of weeks and then we're like, all right, you know what, let's just do it. Let's try it.
Try it out. Yeah.
So we've been doing this for about a year now.
Okay.
So
nice. Yeah, I looked it up. I saw you guys have a lot of podcasts out there. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's going pretty smooth.
For the most part.
For the most part. It's going smooth for the most part.
Yeah. I'd say we'll have some weeks where we're just like but besides that, we've had some honestly, and including YouTube, because there's been some things that you said that I'm just like, wow. But just about every single guest, maybe outside of our first guest that we had, but besides him, it's been a blast to have people on each week. Like it's just a lot of fun.
But you learn so much about people, especially people that you don't really know their background or where they came from or how they got to where they are. So, and there's just there's so many cool stories floating out there. So it's cool that you guys are kind of documenting this stuff, so it's kind of out there for everybody. Yeah,
I say we've had go ahead.
I try to go for most of everyone's like, oh, get a driver, but I try to I kind of go all around go all around NASCAR. We've had pit crew numbers, we have crew chiefs, we've had now you that works in a wind tunnel. We've tried to go all around with people, whoever I find.
No, it's cool too, because the drivers, they get enough press to where I feel like if you're in the sport, everybody's kind of heard the story. They all know their story. So, kind of getting people that aren't in the spotlight is kind of cool, just because you see the variety out there of, everybody where they came from, different states all over the country, growing up doing, all kinds of stuff.
I say, we've even, just this year we've had Alex LeBay in the Xfinity series, and then we've had James Davison on here too, and he was a lot of fun to talk to. That was we definitely got to get a whole different experience with him, also having some Indy or limited IndyCar background and coming from Australia. So that was definitely
that's really different racing over there. So
they definitely have their different quirks that they all have. It's honestly a blast each week to just be able to
I feel like everybody that works, mainly everybody that works in the racing industry, they're just a bunch of old racers that's they love to do it, and they're just competitive, and I feel like they're all a great group of guys, once you get to know them.
Yeah, I say we've and then Troy mentions pit crew. We had Darrell Edwards, who's on Bell's and the 54 car in Xfinity, so we've had him on too. So that was fun to talk to him. Yeah.
Some of those guys are beasts, man.
Oh yeah, they're
They're crazy.
Yeah. We had Ryan Sparks, and he was just like, yeah, I don't know if you'd want to get any of the crew members on. I kind of work with a bunch of scoundrels. I'm like, oh man. But I don't know. Troy, do you got?
I don't think I have any more.
No,
Pretty
you don't?
much.
No.
Hmm.
Oh well. Let's say, where's it gonna go? Oh, let's say, given the probably a lack of track or weekends at the track, if you do have any fun or interesting moments that you do remember from the track, that's usually a question we like to ask everyone.
So I've kind of been fortunate enough. When I first moved out here, I did want to be like on a pit crew. I wanted to travel. And then once I started to get to know people, some of my good friends are on pit crews, and it's like, man, they're gone like Thursday through Monday morning, basically by the time they get home. And that's 36 weeks a year. So they're on the road all the time. So I'm fortunate enough that I don't have to go to the track very often. We'd go maybe driving distance, back before COVID, we'd go to, Atlanta or Charlotte or, Bristol, some of those tracks are they're easy to get to, mainly just because you can kind of go see what you need to see and then you can get back home. So I don't have any, unfortunately, crazy or fun stories with NASCAR. I mean, if you go back to the old dirt days, there's a lot of stories that probably shouldn't be repeated. So we definitely had a lot of fun back in those days. We were serious about the racing, but we're also, we're a bunch of college kids, so we had a good time. So yeah, we definitely lived it up.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well then, with that one, our last thing we usually like to do, if you want to shout out your social medias in case if anyone wants to follow you and get updates on that perspective.
All right. Yep. Instagram is at Wind Tunnel Dave. Twitter's at Wind Tunnel Dave, and then just David Salazar on Facebook.
All right. Well,
Easy enough.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's back when Twitter started and everybody's kind of trying to come up with like clever names. And did you guys ever know a show called Wind Tunnel with Dave Despain?
Yep.
Yeah.
Then I was kind of like, all right, Wind Tunnel Dave. So that's kind of what I came up with that. It's been a long time.
Opportunity was there.
Yeah.
That is great.
Yeah, that's where that came from.
But yeah, it's definitely been great to have you on here and get to understand a lot of the whole background of what you've had.
Yeah, not a problem. There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of information. Like I'm pretty passionate about the wind tunnel stuff, having worked in one for a long time. And there's a lot of information I wish that people are always really curious about wind tunnels, and they think that we just go in there and blow smoke on a car, and it's like, no, like that's the last thing we do. So I do wish that there was a lot of information that you could tell people, but unfortunately, teams pay so much money for this information that it's kind of a close guarded secret. So you could probably give up, have somebody give up their firstborn child before they give up their wind tunnel data. So
yeah, that's what Troy said.
We can't talk about a lot of cool things, but it's definitely cool work to get to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, but Troy mentioned that there are probably some questions that we can't ask. I'm just like, all right, I'll keep to the more basic questions
right away. Like especially when they hear, especially other racers, like then they're like, they hear you working at wind tunnel, they're like, well, what do I need to do here, and how do I do this, and what do I do? And it's like, no. Like I can't answer that. Like I can generally talk about stuff. When I worked at A2, we did some cool stuff. Like we had the USA bobsled team in. We had like Lance Armstrong. We had a lot of pro cyclists, land speed cars. So like that kind of stuff was really cool. And there's a lot of press. If you go out there and look up some of that stuff on A2, there's a lot of cool videos and stuff you can find on YouTube. That kind of same thing. It doesn't really give out the data, but it's at least more videos and pictures and stuff. It's kind of cool to see that kind of stuff.
For sure. Nice. But well, I think that'll about do it then. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming on and spending your time over here and telling us more about you, kind of.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, and good luck with your endeavors.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Thank you.
See ya.
See ya.
So do you want to, we don't have to do like actual summaries or any of that, but you want to just kind of not really much happened in Trucks Xfinity. We can kind of touch on a tiny bit.
Trucks, John Hunter just didn't show up. Like, I don't know what the hell happened there.
That was so weird.
From practice and then qualifying his whatever the hell that was. Did you see that at all?
No.
No? Okay. So he went around to go to his qualifying lap. But before he took the green, he stopped because he didn't like the way he got out of 4. So he turned around, but he went all the way back around the track.
Yeah.
If he wanted a reset, he had to go down pit road. So when he came around and did his lap, NASCAR informed them and everyone that his lap was disqualified because he
Wow.
didn't do the proper way. Yeah. I mean, we saw a couple people on social media be like, and this is why we should have qualifying every week. But,
Yeah.
yeah. But, yeah.
There's a lot of news too. Talk about
There was
actually.
a lot of, yeah, there was
Last
actually.
week was a huge week for crazy news.
And the guys on DVC definitely called it for sure. Because I think Brett Griffin was like, oh no, this is going to be a huge week in news. So,
Yeah, we had a little peek at like kind of like the press conferences that were scheduled for like Friday, Saturday, and it was like announcement for GMS.
oh, yeah.
Let's just kind of get there. So GMS is going to Cup.
I don't like the idea of it for them. I'm going to be honest with you. It backfired on them when they went to Xfinity Series for that year or two.
Yeah.
And then when they came back to trucks, they struggled for another year or two until the past year or so.
I hope they like really like if they're gonna go to Cup even part-time, which I think that's what they're thinking. I think if they want to go to a Cup, they have to downsize their truck to like 2 trucks and like maybe like a third part-time. Like there's no way they're running what they're doing now.
4 or 5 trucks a week.
Yeah, having a part-time Cup team.
No.
There were a lot of speculations. Of course, I think there was a rumor that Sheldon Creed was moving up to someplace after this year, and maybe that's where he's gonna go. So that leaves the 2 truck open that they could close down maybe. Since there's a clear lack of sponsorship there in the 2 truck.
Yeah, but then, his granddad kind of fills that.
Yeah.
He's kind of supporting GMS.
Yeah, so. And then Zane Smith, I bet will stay. Yeah. And Tyler Ankerman ain't going so well, so he's probably out after this year. And that kind of leaves
Chase Purdy and Jack Wood.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Jack Wood goes to the 23 since Chase Purdy's doing really bad.
Dude, Chase Purdy's so bad this year.
I think he doesn't have a top 10 yet, I don't think.
I don't think so. I will double check that right now actually for you. So let's check that out. Chase Purdy. Oh my God, he's 20th in points. He does not have a top 10. Oof. Yikes. Parker Klingerman with one more solid run will pass him in points.
Oh my God, he's run like what, 4 or 5 races this year?
6 races to Purdy's 12.
Oh my God.
Rafael Lessard is still ahead of him in points.
Jeez. This is
I hope. Here's what I hope with GMS next year. That one Cup ride, I hope it's split between Sheldon Creed and Zane Smith. And I hope it's part-time. And then I hope those who are still running trucks, and so is Jack Wood or whatever rotation they do with the 3rd truck. They don't need to have a 4th truck out there. They don't need to have a 5th truck out there. The only reason they need to even have a 3rd or 4th truck is if, yes, Jack Wood or Cup guys do a race or 2. I think that would be the smart move for GMS.
Yeah. I think, I agree with that. Speaking of GMS, we kind of went over this in the Doug Coby interview, and we asked him we had 2 different questions. We had a question of why hasn't he really gone to the National Series, and then we had a question about like a track he wanted to race at, and Bristol was one of them. And
this guy
literally one day later after the interview, Doug Coby racing Bristol with GMS in the Truck Series.
It's so cool, but like I wish we could have gotten that news first.
Yeah.
That would have been sweet. But obviously
That
we
would've
get
been
why
sweet.
he couldn't announce anything. But you know, um was I gonna go with that? Oh, it's like he talked about how SRX he kind of had to keep his lip sealed
Keep
for
his
like 3
mouth shut.
months. For like 3 months.
Yeah.
And it's like, damn it.
Yeah, that's huge for him though. He's been racing for like almost 20 years and he's finally gotten, I mean, it's one race, but like a shot in
Hey,
National Series.
hey, sometimes that's all you need sometimes.
Sam Mayer capitalized it on.
Yeah, we saw it happen
Yeah.
extremely well for him. I mean, we saw it this year with Josh Berry. Granted, he had run all but one race up until then, but still,
Yeah.
it's big.
Speaking of, we're gonna go even bigger. Carling Racing announced their plans for next year. They have bought 2 charters, both from Spire. Justin Haley's gonna be full time. AJ Allmendinger's gonna be part time, and the two charters are from Spire Motorsports. One from the Trackhouse 99, which was leased, and then the 77 car. Um, and that's pretty much the news.
That's unfortunate.
I don't know if it's really yeah, it's unfortunate for Suarez, but like I think they'll be doing the 77 part-time next year.
I
They're
think
not
that would be the smart
yeah,
decision.
yeah, there's no way that Spire's gonna go down to one car.
Not for the entire year. No,
Not for the entire year. Um but yeah,
I'm not.
LaJoy's gonna keep his charter.
Yeah, I I think this is again looking the same route as GMS. You're gonna have 2 full-time cars. How many cars do you run in Xfinity? Do you run 3? Do you run 2? I think they would run 2 and then a third part-time car, because whenever Haley would want to run those Xfinity races, because you'd have, let's say Allmendinger is going to be full-time in Xfinity again. Let's just say that's how it is. You probably have Jeb Burton again, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what do you do with that? I think the smart thing to do would be to make that third car part-time, if not exist at all.
I think that's the smartest move. Put Jeb. You can leave Jeb in a 10, and then
AJ in the 16.
yeah, AJ in the 16, and then like all the sponsors from like the 11 car and everything. Leaf filter.
They're probably gonna follow Haley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're gonna follow Haley, but they could also support Jeb a little bit too.
Yeah.
Jeb has some sponsorship problems this year that could help him next year. With them closing down the whole car.
I think that'd be a smart decision as well.
Yeah.
For sure. And then do we wish to talk about SRX? Because we got to see them hit the dirt for the first time.
Yeah, SRX had a race 2 at the dirt and Knoxville this weekend, and it did not disappoint at all. Oh my God.
Such a great I honestly thought it was a great
race.
race. Yeah.
It was a great race. I don't have nothing to complain about. Paul Tracy probably hit the wall like 16 times before he went out. Even on the restart, he was just like,
dude, he hit the wall at every restart, I think.
Almost. Like, that was crazy.
Shout out to Ernie Francis Jr. and Haley Deegan. I definitely didn't think Haley was going to compete with them.
I
had a feeling she could be somewhat all right, like 6th, but no, she was running 2nd and 3rd like the entire thing.
But yeah, because no one else really has that much dirt experience. I mean, even with she has like the slightest dirt experience. Like a lot of other guys have a lot less.
Yeah, but Ernie Francis definitely showed up.
Michael Waltrip did too. He wasn't won the damn thing. That was crazy. I wish he won that.
Not the whole thing.
He was close. With like 20 to go, he was right on.
Yeah, and then Deegan and Ernie Francis got by, and those two and Tony Stewart checked out from the rest of them. But no, they 2 weeks in a row, SRX is just killing it, dude. Absolutely killing it.
By far.
Good. Oh yeah. And then next week they'll be going to Tony's track, so we'll see if he can go 2 in a row.
I think he'll go 2 in a row easily.
Yeah.
I don't see anyone coming close again.
Although Deegan will be racing that race too, I'm pretty sure. So she'll have another week in the cars. So who knows? Maybe she could compete with him. That'd be interesting. Dude, what if she wins an SRX race before she wins a truck race?
Oh my god, that'd be crazy.
Honestly, though, at least she's not like Becker. What? Someone say that out loud. Did someone say that out loud? Who said that?
Say what? I mean,
Speaking of her, she ran the Xfinity race.
The truck. Yeah, Decker ran the Xfinity.
There's only one thing to note from that.
Kyle Busch gets win 100. That's about it.
Whoa.
Whoa, yeah.
Whoa, NASCAR.
Whoa, NASCAR. We did not really touch on Ryan Preece winning his first truck start.
That is true.
That was a really good finish between Gilliland and Finger and
Preece.
Yeah,
yes, dude. I was hoping Todd was gonna win. Oh,
I was hoping and Finger just for the story, but like
I didn't want him to win.
Bro, he got kicked out of his full-time ride and he's just making the most of like every single start.
Well, yeah, I get that 100%, but at the same time, it's kind of like I wanted Todd to win.
Yeah,
I had to show some fanfare on that one. But no, that was excellent racing. I thought when Todd was gonna get by Preece, that Enfinger was next up and Todd was gonna get away, but then Gilliland and Preece kind of both had like a situation in one of the corners, and Preece got to his outside and got back around him to where he was able to hunt down Enfinger, and I was just like, damn. But no, props to Preece. He's got a truck win now, and especially in his first truck race. I had someone try to compare him to Casey Kane, and I almost went off, but I decided to be polite. Sorry if you see this, dude.
Now we move this Sunday where Eric Almirola won the pole. Yeah, that we couldn't believe it either. He wasn't competitive, but he was top 10 all race. So props to him. He did better than I expected, even after the pole. What did he get? He got
like 6th? No,
he got like
6th.
5th or 4th or something like that. He got 5th.
He got 4th. He got 4th. Chase got DQ'd, but Chase wasn't up there regardless at that point.
Yeah, he was.
He finished like 13th. Yeah. But no, props to Eric Almirola. He finally put a race together.
There's a lot of guys to touch on in the finishing order.
Ross Chastain finished 2nd.
Yeah, we get skipped right over Larson.
Yeah, Larson dominated, guys. By the way, in case you didn't know, he won the race. He led like 264 laps or something like that.
Ross Chastain got 2nd. Stenhouse was top 5 all day.
Dude, I thought he was gonna be the one guy to threaten Larson all day, dude. At one point, he looked like he was the guy to compete with him. I was like, where the hell is this coming from? But no, Suarez then finished 7th. Much needed.
Kurt Busch had a really good point. Yeah, finally, bro. They actually ran out with like a lap and a half to go.
Yeah.
And then the car was sputtering after that. And
Christopher Bell finally has his first good race in like 4 months.
Yeah, he didn't show up until the end. I mean, 9th, props to him. Kyle Busch, what even happened to that car? It was just handling. It went off the deep one with handling, and then just came back for 11th.
Didn't he call his car a bucket of crap at one point?
Yeah, he did.
Oh my God.
Ryan Newman, top 15, props to him.
Corey LaJoy. Dude, I was so happy when I saw that because obviously they didn't touch on anyone beyond 12th basically the entire race. But dude, I was like watching, I was like, okay, I see him on the leaderboard. Oh, face 60, let's go. Absolute dubs.
Right behind him, Anthony Alfredo. I mean, props to him. Top 20 all day. He had that speed all day. Shows again how much practice in qualifying helps,
especially to the rookies.
I mean, that's about it. I mean, Gibbs sucked all day.
Dude, they were no shows. They were no shows until the very end. I mean, Kyle looked good for the most part. And Denny was running like 8th a good majority of the race.
Yeah.
JJ Yaley got screwed out of a top 25.
By a flat tire and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And
Dude, there was one point, did he restart like 6th
he restarted like 10th.
or
And
10th? Yeah.
I
was just like,
I
what the
kind of
hell?
saw the
Is he on
speed.
the lead lap?
I
Like,
kind of I saw his speed kind of because at some point Freddie was under him. Someone got under him. And down the front stretch, like he was still like side by side, like his straightaway speed was like right there. It
yeah.
was crazy to watch. And I was looking, I'm like, I feel like this is normal, but like it doesn't look normal. Like
I
JJ
know.
Haley's like side drafting this guy. 31st was Chase Briscoe. He was top 5. I mean strategy, but
Oh,
like he was like top
Chase Briscoe was
15
having such
all
a good
day.
day.
And then breaks, which was a really frequent topic. It killed Chris Buescher and Ryan Blaney.
Yeah. No one worse than good old Quinn Half on the first lap, Starcom Racing.
Oh yeah,
dude, how the hell? What
do
we even know what if did they just not have the lug nuts on, or
I don't even know what even happened? Like what? How did they even work? Do you just not put lug nuts on to begin with?
I turned the race on and it was lap 3 and they're
Like,
just going back green. I'm like, what happened? What? I don't know. I don't know. But that definitely shook up the old points.
Yeah, especially Chris Buescher. He lost Bob Parker City lost 39 points, which is it was huge to both Kurt Busch and Stenhouse. Stenhouse is still a good ways back. I mean, Suarez also kind of benefited since he got second in stage 1, ended up after the DQ. It's a big points game. I mean, Ross Chastain's performance lately, I mean, I think he could definitely be a contender for the playoffs now. I think we could start talking about him.
You want to know the scary thing?
But
say those 4 or 5 guys, Buescher through Chastain, pull off some miracle and win races. Larson wins one more race, or does Larson things. Denny Hamlin won't make the playoffs because Larson's only 10 points behind Denny. If Denny does not get a win and there's some miracle magic that goes on behind him, Denny would not make the playoffs.
Well, hold up.
Larson is only 10 points behind Denny Hamlin.
Yeah.
Remember when Denny was untouchable at his 85-point gap? Yeah. There's a legitimate chance if Denny does not win and these other guys do, because you got to remember, Harvick still hasn't won yet. Austin Dillon still hasn't won yet. Yeah. You always point out Kurt Busch still hasn't gotten his 1 win in the season yet. So there's 3 more wins, right? So that puts the cutoff marker at it'd be what? Reddick over Buescher.
I forgot I do have it. Oh, David Demi, he's like, he said he forgot a good racing story and he could share it right now.
Right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, if he wants to hop back on. Did he just message you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So back with the playoffs, what was it? I gotta see how much the playoff was before the race. 1 second. It was 60 points between Buescher and Benedetto, and now it's only 24 between Buescher and Kurt Busch.
Oh yeah, Benedetto had a shitty day too.
Yeah, he lost some cylinders, so that's a huge change in the. That's a huge change in the playoffs.
Yeah, if Kurt wins, he's got that 1 bonus point. We know how much 1 point literally means in the playoffs. We saw it last year.
Yeah.
Kevin Harvick. Anyway,
I think is that about it for the weekend?
I think that's about it for the weekend. Was there any news that broke today? No, there was not.
No.
Hey, welcome back.
Welcome back.
So we're serving dinner and I was like, man, I wish I had I kind of had a brain fart moment when you guys asked about a racing story.
Yeah.
Did you see the picture I just sent you?
Yeah, I did get that picture. I'll send it over to Chris too.
Okay. So maybe send it over to Chris and then I'll tell you guys about it.
Which one are you going to
Uh,
send it on? Oh, text. All right.
iMessage. Yeah.
Oh, geez. Okay. All right. This is, oh boy. Oh boy.
This is a good one. So this was in Phoenix. They had a track called Manzanita Speedway, which is like the coolest dirt track I've ever been to. It was a half-mile dirt track, super fast. There was a junkyard between turns 3 and 4, and they used to always tell the drivers, I don't know if they were joking or serious, but they were like, in a sprint car, I mean, it was very, easy. You could easily clear the fence and line up in the junkyard, and they would tell the drivers, if you end up in the junkyard, either you can get out of your car, get out quick, and get up as high as you can, and if not, just stay in your car, and then the guy will come out and let the dogs off. So I'm not sure if that was to scare the drivers or not, but that was always a big joke. But anyways, this was at the end of the year. We went to a pretty big show there, and I can't remember what year. It had to be probably, gosh, this was probably in 2002-ish, I bet. And this, the picture I just sent you, that was in the heat race. So I mean, that was lap 1, turn 1. They go barreling off in the corner, and I don't know what happened, but somebody's messed up and got into somebody, and pretty much the whole heat race got wadded up in turn 1. And the driver you see getting out of the blue helmet, that's Rhett. That's the guy that I was crew chiefing for. So he ended up on top of the pile, and we're like, man, like, we're just lucky everybody's okay. Like, nobody got hurt. The cars, believe it or not, the cars weren't damaged other than some body work. So we got the car towed back to the pits. We got it fixed. And this was a 2-day show. So if you didn't qualify, the first day, you had to go through the whole process again the next day. After that wreck, we had to start in the back of everything, and we ended up working our way up, and we qualified for the second night show that night. And we went back to the hotel parking lot, and I mean, we stripped the body off that thing, and we're running over the panels with the truck, trying to straighten everything out. And we got the car fixed. We got everything done, got back to the race the next day. And I think we ended up finishing second in that race. And it was a pretty big race at the end of the year. So I think for me, that was just the coolest, to be under so much pressure and to come out, with a second place win after all that. I thought that was pretty cool.
That is a crazy story.
Yeah,
Dude, that is insane. What
That
the
is
hell?
insane.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm glad you got that picture, because it's hard to believe, and it's even harder to tell, like, how all those cars ended up like that.
Yeah.
Jeez. That is nuts.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Definitely the junkyard story. I thought you were going to say one of you guys ended up in there too. I thought that's where that was going.
I never saw anybody end up. I've seen videos, watching it on TV. I've seen people end up in the junkyard, but I've never been there when somebody has. That track was fast enough that it wasn't that time, but we went another time, and one of my good friends, Josh Byer, his dad Donnie Byer, he was racing, and he got in no, he wasn't in a crash. He was running, and somebody flipped in front of him, and they were flipping high enough down the back straightaway that he went underneath their car. The speeds were so high there.
Whoa.
So it was a fast track. It was a lot of fun, and I think they ended up tearing it down and building houses, which sucks, because it was a really cool track to go see.
That was probably a safety reason at some point too. At that point, because if you say they're probably carrying, you say someone literally drove under another car, while it was flipping, so they got to be carrying some serious speed.
A lot of light under that car. Yep.
Wow.
So but anyways, I thought I'd share that story with you guys. That was a pretty cool story.
Yeah,
thank you.
Appreciate it.
For sure.
Thank you very much for that. That's
yeah,
insane.
not a problem, guys.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
You too.
You too.
Thanks.
Yep.
So here he is, and the first winner of the new Superstar Racing Experience, Doug Coby. He recently won in Stafford this past weekend, and he is also a 6-time champion in the Wheel and Modified Series. So how you doing?
I'm good. Just kind of enjoying the week and doing some work, getting ready for our next Modified Tour race at Riverhead on Saturday, and kind of soaking in all of the old SRX atmosphere and all the fun stuff that comes along with that.
Yeah, I was listening to DVC actually earlier today, so I was listening to your interview with those guys, and they had some great questions and interesting comments, and your replies are just awesome to that too. That was awesome.
Thanks. I mean, I go way back with Freddie, back to pretty much the beginning of my career on the Modified Tour. Was probably close to his beginnings on the Modified Tour too, and he's a good dude. We've had a lot of fun together. drinking at the racetrack after the races and breaking each other's balls when we're, not doing too good. Usually sometimes it happens when we're working with each other, but at the same time, it's all about having fun. And he's one of my great friends through racing, and it's pretty cool to see him, move up as a spotter from, Riverhead Raceway on Long Island weekly, and then doing modified tour stuff, and then all the cool things he's been doing. So it's not always about the drivers. There's a lot of different parts of auto racing and NASCAR especially, and there are a lot of cool people doing some awesome stuff, and awesome to see good friends do well. And honestly, they've been great and really supportive of me with the whole SRX thing.
That's awesome. That's actually great. You talk about the amount of different people and moving parts. We've actually had we've had a couple of guys that we had. Darrell Edwards, who is Christopher Bell's Jack Man and the 54 car, and John Hunter Nemechek. And then we've also had Ryan Sparks, who is Corey LaJoy's crew chief. So we definitely understand all the moving parts to the sport and all this and that, which is pretty cool. You get everyone's different perspective on that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's lots of different backgrounds, and a lot of people from the Northeast down there doing some cool things. And, it's awesome to see, we're a pretty racy part of the country. It's really competitive up here at all the weekly tracks. I don't think a lot of people realize how many tracks there are in New England that run on Friday and Saturday nights, and, put on some good shows and get some good crowds and lots of good car count. And I know that sometimes weekly it's hard to get that car count, at some of the tracks, and it's hard to get more than a couple hundred fans. But, a track like Stafford every Friday night, jams it out with the SKs. They've got awesome social media for the track and timely results and lots of news stories about their drivers and amazing sponsorships. It pays pays a lot to win Stafford weekly for the SK Modified. So with short track racing, it's awesome to have the spotlight. And that's kind of what the whole SRX deal was about, was, celebrating short track racing in America.
Yeah. I was actually at Stafford this past week, and I saw it all on Saturday. And especially in the SK Modified series, there was a lot of names there that like I wasn't really familiar with, but like the local people that go there mostly every week, there were like a lot of like mixed emotions in the stands and everything, and it was really different to see, because I rarely go to like a local track near me, and to see all like the mixed emotions and everyone cheering and booing different people, it's kind of cool to see kind of like a small town or like a local track kind of like come together in those moments.
Yeah, I mean, Stafford's SKs are super competitive, and lots of big personalities in that division over the years. I'm a graduate of that division, and to go there every Friday night from, the end of April until the end of September, which is Stafford's race season, is just a real grind. And you really form rivalries and, learn how to race with each other and how not to race with each other. And, Stafford is an amazing place as it is. It's fun to watch there. They've got a great atmosphere, but, they're on flow racing now every week, every Friday night. So it doesn't matter if you're in Connecticut and you can't keep up with it. You can, pay the small fee that it is for the flow racing subscription for the year. And if you're already a flow racing subscriber, you can just log on and watch Stafford Speedway weekly. And, the thing about weekly racing and even the touring series level, like the modified tour, you just have to watch a handful of races and you start to learn the names of the drivers. And I always even think about it like the other divisions at Stafford. If you just watch the street stocks or the late models or any division there, more than a half a dozen times, you start to learn who the key players are. And, I kind of look at, that kind of like what I represent with the modified tour. I mean, all of our racing are on NBC Sports. NASCAR broadcasts everything live for the modified tour on NBC Sports. If you have this NBC Sports Gold subscription, you can just watch it. So we go to Riverhead this Saturday, and if anybody wants to check out the modified tour, you can watch it live and get to know who some of the drivers are. And when it comes to moving up in racing these days, social media presence is big and name following is big. And the way that you get that is by having tracks like Stafford that are putting their weekly drivers out on flow racing to get new people's eyes on them.
Yeah, for sure. I think short track racing and local track or local racing in general is probably some of the most underrated racing you'll see out there. I'm from Michigan, so I see all the short track stuff that goes on here and all the even just small town fairs and all that. Because where I'm from, we have one of the bigger fairs in Michigan, so we see all the local guys that do all the bump and runs, figure eights, and all that, and that's all, tear your stuff up, come back to another place the next week. But it's you learn even from just there too who the guys are that compete week in and week out with that. It's nice to see that.
Yeah, the guys from Berlin Raceway are desperately trying to get the Wheel and Modified Tour there. I talked to them at the NASCAR banquet 2 years ago, and they really want us there. And it would be, great to get the modifieds in front of the Midwest fans. It's just an awful long trip to travel for, 24 teams that are mostly based in Connecticut, Massachusetts, Long Island. So, the extra travel is tough. The extra time off of work, people have to remember that our series, everybody is volunteer crews. So if we're racing on a Saturday and we have a full day of travel on Friday, and then, a full day of travel again on Sunday, not that we can't do it, but NASCAR's done a pretty good job of balancing our schedule with travel races down south to places like Myrtle Beach. We used to go to Bristol, those types of tracks. And who knows? I mean, I think you'll probably see us starting to run some of the tracks in Ohio and Michigan and Indiana at some point. We race at Jennerstown now in Pennsylvania, and we're going to go to Lancaster Speedway in Western New York, which is a little ways near Buffalo. So those are pretty big trips for us. And, it's important to get us in front of new fans. And when people see drivers like me, at SRX and Ryan Preece running the Cup Series and all the great things he's done for promoting our series, it just kind of expands our footprint a little bit. And just really great racing with the modifieds and super cool cars. And I know you guys out in the Midwest, you have a car you call modifieds, but they're not like our ground pounder modifieds. They're totally different. And that's a hard thing. Actually, it's something I've thought about, is that it's hard. People in other parts of the country, everybody has a modified division, and most of them are those IMSA style modifieds, or like the Florida modifieds that they run down south. And they're just not what we run, what a Northeast tour type modified is. So, people who see our division usually get hooked on it pretty quick because the cars handle great. They're kind of like, everybody who loves the sprint cars in the Midwest, it's like their little rocket ships, and ours are, other than the super modifieds, we're about as close as you come on asphalt to something like that, where it's got a ton of power and great handling and super exciting. So it's a cool series to be a part of. And, I'm just representing with this whole SRX deal, just representing the tour type mods.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's so cool to see all the different kinds of racings that go on throughout the country in general. But one thing that came to my mind, explain how you got the deal to be in SRX and run against everyone, because to anyone that doesn't pay attention to NASCAR or the lower series of NASCAR, they were like, well, who's this guy? He's not, IndyCar champion or NASCAR champion. Just, explain how this whole deal came about.
Yeah, sure. So, Stafford's my home track, and I've been racing. I had started racing there probably before you guys were born. In 1996 was my first year. I won track championships there in 1998 and 2000, and then followed the progression up through the ranks to the Wheel and Modified Tour. And that's the king of the racing up in the Northeast. I mean, it's the touring series that everybody in the Northeast wanted to be a part of and wants to win on. And after a couple of years of trying, I finally won some races. And then after many years of trying, I started to win championships, and I won 6 championships on the Modified Tour, and between 2012 and 2019. And, at the time, NASCAR started broadcasting the Modified Tour races on NBC Sports, and they were hiring guys like Ray Evernham to call the races. And so Ray was doing a lot of prep work to learn who the Modified Tour drivers were. And I happened to grow up racing with Ray's wife, Erin. And so it was just a natural connection for Ray to reach out to me to ask questions about the modified so that he could become educated on our series. Ray's a modified guy, raced at Wall Stadium in New Jersey. So he's always followed the modifieds, but my friendship with him really actually started from him just following the tour probably from like 2014 until now. And he knows that, that there's a handful of us that run up front on the tour quite often. And then, when he started dreaming up this SRX series and the local competitor at the local track, I knew as soon as he said he wanted to go to Stafford, that if they booked Stafford, I knew at least I'd be in discussion for it. Certainly there are other drivers like Keith Rocco, who has kind of a national name for his weekly racing efforts. I think obviously if Ryan Preece wasn't running the Cup Series, he would be somebody that would be thought of to do it. And, Ray just kind of shot me a text back in February. I was just about to go to New Smyrna to race. So it was the beginning of February or the end of January. And he just said, hey, we've locked in this SRX deal at Stafford, and we're going to definitely do a local guy. They didn't know they were going to do the local cars with the superstars. That was something I think Ray had to really pitch the rest of the team on, that was putting SRX together. And once he got the blessing to do that, he just shot me a text and said, hey, give me a buzz. We got to talk SRX. And he let me know he wanted me to do it. And then I had to keep it secret for I don't know, over a month. It was well over a month that they didn't announce it until April. And I kept asking them, because I have loose lips, and I kept asking them, I'm like, are you guys going to announce this anytime soon? And so they had to come up with their plan, because at the time they were announcing all their full-time drivers all through February and March. They were doing those announcements every couple of days, and they wanted to wait until the end to do all of the local drivers, to secure their plan for all the local drivers with the four of us they picked, and then the Slinger Nationals winner, and then whatever they're going to do at Nashville. So they had some things to figure out, and, they made the announcement, and then, it was kind of a done deal.
That is awesome. And you mentioned Evernham and all this and that. I was a huge Casey Kane fan. So when Evernham said that he was going to be a part of this, I was like, oh, hell yeah. And then obviously you mentioned getting in 96, and I'm like, it's only 2 years before I was born, not too bad. But
yeah, I'm an old guy, so I figured that most of you young kids are born in the 2000s. That's okay. That's fine.
Hey, I'm just before. I'm still okay. And now Troy, on the other hand, no.
2004.
Yeah, there's a little bit of age between
a little bit of age gap.
Troy, you got?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's just jump in the XRX deal. So I could probably guess that a modified and the SRX cars are polar opposites, kind of. But is there anything that you could take from driving the modified for so many years and put into when you raced the SRX cars?
Yeah, I think so. I think you just get experience at a track, and I have a lot more experience than just the modifieds at Stafford. And I've been fortunate enough the last handful of years, I've run some asphalt midgets with the Northeastern Midget Association. So getting out of the comfort zone of the modified, I ran a K&N car at Thompson in 2017. So I think that I'm fairly adaptable. Even the Stafford SKs to a tour car are two totally different types of modifieds. They might look the same, but they race totally different motor combination, different carburetor, different horsepower, all sorts of stuff. So I think I'm pretty flexible when it comes to getting around Stafford. And the SRX car was a little bit of a beast, a little unknown beast for all of us. Ray said from the beginning he wasn't setting it up to be a perfect handling race car. And, I'm used to trying to have a perfect handling race car. So that was a challenge, just to try to not make it perfect and to deal with what it was. But handling wise, very close to the K&N car that I drove. And maybe that's just because it's a full body car with a similar tire. But it just seemed to kind of want to be pretty fast down the straightaways, similar to a modified power wise. But then it just, those cars just don't have the grip with the wide tires that I have in the modified, and the snappiness of the handling. They're just a little lazier, and they like things to go a little slower, and they like you to be a little more gentle on the throttle and let the car kind of roll through the corner, kind of like I'm sure a Cup or an Xfinity car would. So they're not, they were a challenge to figure out, but I felt like I adapted well. And I did take a lot of my little tricks from the modified to that car, and it actually handled them pretty well. And I just kind of dialed them back a little bit to work for that.
Sorry. I got thrown off my train right there. Troy, do you got? I'm going to try to remember.
All right. What was the question? So when you won um, how was like the feeling of it all, and like how all like the big names they were racing like came up to congratulate you, and like what was like the atmosphere like when you won?
Well, it hurt because I fell on my ass when I got out of the car. And that didn't feel too good. But I mean, just the support from the crowd was pretty awesome. Stafford was rocking that night. And I don't know if the people on TV could really tell, what kind of environment it was and the atmosphere, especially for somebody going there as many years as I've been there. They get great crowds, but that was a special crowd. And, they all rallied behind me, obviously, to win. And, all the guys that I raced with were awesome. They were really interested in me as a driver and my background and how I got to race in the series and learning about the track and all that stuff. And I tried to give them as many tips as I could. And I think they appreciated it. I'm not there to keep secrets. I'll just tell you exactly what I try to do and you can try to figure it out. I'm not somebody typically who gets I'm not like starstruck in general. But yeah, I mean, when I see those guys and I get a little nervous meeting them for the first time. I'm like, this is Bill Elliott. This isn't just some guy, walking around the racetrack. It's Bill freaking Elliott. And, Tony, of course, is so used to meeting young guys. And well, I'm not young, but you know what I mean? Just, everybody, Tony knows that a lot of us look up to him as kind of a mentor, even though, he doesn't mentor us. We look at him as a model for, how to have a long racing career and be versatile and do all sorts of stuff like he's doing owning the racetrack and all the cool things he does. So yeah, I mean, it was awesome. I think those guys know I had a little bit of an unfair advantage with my laps that I have at the track, but they certainly respected that. And, I think they were happy that I won. And I think that it made, the series was happy. It made for good TV. It made for a good story to start off. And, it puts a little bit of pressure on the other local guys, Brian Brown this week at Knoxville. And he was texting me to, ask me how the car was and all sorts of stuff. So we're having fun with it. And, a lot of times these days racing just stops being fun. And I've always said that, a lot of these drivers that I see doing other stuff, you can just tell they're not having fun racing the car and they're missing out on the cool side of racing, which is having beers with your friends. If you're of age, having beers with your friends after you win and, hanging out with your crew and camping. Like I camp with my guys at the races all the time. And, that's fun. It's not always about just, saying the right thing all the time. And it's not always about not making mistakes because we all make mistakes. I fell out of the car because I slipped on the window net and I was embarrassed as hell. But guess what? I just won the race. I just beat Elio Castroneves. I mean, come on. So I don't care that I fell out of the car. It is what it is. And, I laugh because I see some people just constantly sharing the video and stuff. And it's like, that doesn't bug me in the slightest bit. I can laugh at myself and I was having fun and that's what racing is. So, it's been a great week. Lots of people, sending me texts and I can't even respond to everybody yet. So it's been awesome.
Yeah. So you mentioned the how when people move up and kind of get into the more like serious and like higher levels of racing, that they kind of like lose the fun sometimes in it and like the hanging out and partying aspect of racing that's behind it. Is that a reason like that you really haven't like moved up that much and like showed a lot of interest in like going up into like the higher ranks?
Yeah, I mean, it still comes down to money and sponsorship, and I've struggled with that. Struggled finding sponsorship my whole career, really, until I landed Mayhew Tools in 2017 or 16. I think it was the end of 16. So Mayhew's been awesome, and they're kind of getting their feet wet in racing, and they support me in everything that I do. And they, there's budgets though, and I'm happy with them with the modified tour. I would say I don't want to blame anybody other than myself for maybe not pursuing something more. Ryan Priest proved that you can not have a whole ton of sponsorship and round things up and get things done. Like when he got the Joe Gibbs Racing opportunity, he had to, lean on a lot of people who have supported him in his racing career. So, that's because Ryan had a mission, and Ryan's mission since he was 5 years old was to become a NASCAR Cup driver. And when he started to see the door was cracked open, he tried to kick it down, and he did. I think for me, I was always focused on, what's next locally and what's next with a modified tour, and finding myself in an established modified tour ride. And, any sponsorship I got, I always put towards that. So I could have hired a marketing company. I could have gone out to try to raise, a couple $100,000 for a few races in Xfinity or something like that. But that was just never me and never my focus. And never, not to say that I wouldn't do it or that I wouldn't want to do it. But again, I'll take the responsibility for that, for not being, crazed to go and make it happen. So, I'm happy where I am. I've had a good career. I'm a little old now to be trying to move up to something bigger, but you never know. Crazier things have happened. And, you'll notice in NASCAR that there's always like little shifts in the tide from, whatever people are finding to be the best drivers for vacant rides. And a lot of times it's whoever's got the most money. But right now, guys like Josh Berry paving the way for short trackers who are underfunded and then performing well. I think you see me in the SRX series, and most people know that I'm just, to a lot of people, a no-name modified guy, but performing well. And ultimately, racing should come down to performance, and it shouldn't matter if you're 18 or 41 or 22. Whoever can do the best in the vehicle should be granted the opportunities. And I think there's a little bit of a shift towards that right now over the last handful of years.
You mentioned definitely talent over money. That is one thing Em and I, especially, we always talk about in the couple of group chats we're in, is that you just see these guys that get rides they probably shouldn't be in, but are there because of money or, whatever funding that comes their way. And
it's a business, and these teams need to pay employees, and they have lives that they have to support, and it takes money to do that. And, that's why, it's a combination of everything. It's a combination of, what the sponsors are looking for and who the sponsors are. Sometimes people's parents know the sponsors, and sometimes people's parents are the sponsors. And there's no problem with that. There should be a mix. There should be a good mix of drivers in all the series. And I think right now we're definitely, we're very skewed heavily right now on the younger driver development type drivers who, quite frankly, many of them wouldn't survive a top 10 in an SK modified at Stafford, and it would probably take them many years to win. And that's not saying that they're not capable. It just means that there are a lot of drivers that have a lot to learn. And I think, if you have the mix of the Matt Craftons and the Johnny Sauters and veteran drivers who, can make it interesting and make these kids work for it, then I think you have something going good. I think when you have an automatic entry because of how much money you have, and then you root out some of these guys that are still really great drivers, and instead they become driver coaches or spotters, well-paid driver coaches or spotters, I think you just lose a little bit of the fun factor of the series, and I do see a little bit of, I see a little bit of change in the tide, so to say. And I think that any momentum that any short tracker can get is a good thing. So if I'm just, if somebody says like, hey man, you remember Josh Berry did good, you remember Doug Coby won the SRX race, and it leads to some other short tracker getting a shot, I think that's awesome, because we all kind of play a part in it.
I say, yeah, that's definitely something that has gone away. But like you said, is the tide is turning, because I still remember growing up, because I can say I'm old enough to remember that all the guys that came through the short tracks and got these oddball race deals in the 80s and 90s, who were the guys. You have Mark Martin and Rusty Wallace and all those guys that came from short tracks first and then got their way up to getting these major rides. And now you just see, all the young kids with money and all this and that who have the sponsors. And like you said, it's a business nowadays, which is kind of the sad part. And we see it though with the younger guys too. It's definitely not a lack of talent. It's more of a lack of experience.
Yeah, experience, maturity, life experience. Again, there's no problem with those scenarios, but it always used to just be a handful of those, and now it seems like it's just the majority. And if we can get a good balance there, it'll make the racing a lot better. And you have to just listen to the fans, and whatever the fans want is what needs to happen. And hopefully the sponsors see that reflected in their bottom line when they choose somebody who can do a good job representing the brand and the fans respond by buying the product.
For sure. Well, I know there's two questions we usually like to ask any guest we get. So
Okay.
I'll start with one that's fun, that sometimes we get the, oh, I don't know how to answer it, but then they just go right away. The first one, what is probably your funnest or best moment or experience from the track?
Oh, I think a lot of it centers around, some of the things that we do as drivers, that fans and even crew members don't realize, just because the drivers in my series, we all have a relationship with each other. So sometimes we'll, smash the crap out of each other just for fun. And it's not because, somebody might look at it and say, oh my God, he just drilled him, he hates him. But sometimes it's out of like fun and friendship. So those are I don't know. I don't really keep like a top 10 list of like the most fun things, but I think for me, it's just I have a lot of fun joking around with people. And I have a lot of fun when that's reflected in my racing, and people can tell that something like that happens, that we're just doing for the pure fun factor. Obviously it takes some skill to not wreck your car, but sometimes, just the little hand gestures that we give each other, as you can imagine what it would be, stuff like that. A lot of it has to do with mutual respect and then having fun with each other. So for me, the funnest thing is being at the track with everybody, and, kind of chasing each other to be better. And that's how I have my fun.
That's awesome. And then another one, which might be more of an oddball question, given that it's a little bit, I don't want to say later in the career, but it's been a pretty solid one. What's a short-term goal and a long-term goal?
Short-term goal is to find a way to tie Mike Stefanik and win a 7th Modified Tour championship. This is a guy who's getting inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame, and really was a mentor for me and many drivers in the Northeast, and a model of a champion. If you guys could have ever met him, I mean, just the way he conducted himself in the race car and out of the race car, so deserving of that honor. So short-term goal is to somehow find a way to win number 7. I missed a race last week I missed the Oswego race last week. So it put me in a little bit of a hole, and we have great competitors on the tour. So it's going to be a challenge to dig out of that hole, but I'm going to try. And if it doesn't happen this year, I'll try again next year. The long-term goal, I think, is just continued success for short track racers and being an ambassador for that. And remembering that, people are watching now, and it's hard for somebody like me. Like, I don't think about stuff like SRX changing anything for me, but it does. It means that people are going to look on my Twitter account and my Instagram and my Facebook page, and, kind of scrutinize the things that I say. And I need to make sure that I'm, representing my sponsors well and representing short track racing well. And I think that if I can be a part of that, that would be really exciting to see, the shift in racing a little bit, keep going, and to know that I was a part of that. And who knows, maybe there are some opportunities, even as my career, I don't necessarily think my career is winding down, but I'm certainly past the halfway point of my career. That's for sure. And, maybe there will be some opportunities, from things like SRX to get involved and help. I like promoting, and I like dreaming of like cool short track races and all sorts of stuff. So, maybe after my short track career is over, if I never get a chance to do something more in the top parts of NASCAR, maybe I become somebody who gets more involved in helping the short tracks be better down the road. So not saying that that's a given, or that I'd even necessarily want to do it after I race, because I don't know, but certainly points to that direction for me to be involved in the the business side of helping short track racing get better than it already is. So that, I would say, it would be an awesome long-term goal to pursue, and just kind of keep getting the word out about these awesome short tracks that exist around the country.
That's awesome. Hell yeah. Troy, do you have anything?
Yeah.
Left?
So you've raced at a lot of tracks over the years, a lot of short tracks mostly. Is there still a short track around the country that you still have like a goal to race at one day?
That's hard to say because there's a lot of good ones that I don't know about. I've never been to a dirt track, so I don't know. I don't necessarily know. I'm sure there's some great dirt tracks out there. Probably I would say, something like Five Flags to run the snowball derby. That would probably be if you said, okay, which track have you never raced at that you'd want to race at? I'd probably want to be there for that one event. And that's more about the event, I think, than maybe the track. Certainly if I could ever win a race at Bristol, that would be like, my childhood dream in a sense, not necessarily my adulthood dream, but my childhood dream was always to be a guy that was dominant at Bristol or something like that. And, so there, we'll see how that, ever pans out. But yeah, I mean, listen, there are a ton of good little short tracks out there. And I always used to struggle on the quarter mile tracks, and now I have quarter mile wins in the modified at Monadnock, at White Mountain in New Hampshire, and now at Riverhead. So I've kind of been honing my skills on the little tiny bull rings, the quarter miles, which are tough in a modified. So for me, I mean, any track I've never been to, I'd love to go to and win at. And I guess maybe Lucas Oil Raceway Park would be another one that I watched a race at once when I was a kid, a Busch Series race. And, that would be one that if we could ever run the modifieds there, which I would bet within the next 10 years, you'll see the modified tour racing there. If I had to guess, I think that would be awesome. Like that's a track I'd love to get some laps around.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Troy, do you have anything left?
I thought I did, but I forgot it now.
You forgot?
Yeah. I'll just do the question I ask a lot of people whenever I come on contact with like a driver or any of that. So you mentioned Mike Stefanik before. And he's probably answered to this question, but like growing up, is there a driver that you like idolized the most and looked up to the most? To become a driver that made you want to be a driver?
Not really. I started young. I started at age 6, and my dad was a big Dale Senior fan. So naturally he and I gravitated towards of the Jeff Gordon Dale Senior rivalry. We were definitely Dale Senior fans and used to laugh when, he would get into it with Gordon. And, I always liked aggressive drivers. But then I had a lot of respect for guys like Harry Gant and Alan Kulwicki, who were just always there at the end and really hardworking. So I didn't have one particular driver. Mike Stefanik was always a driver who presented awards at my quarter midget banquets when I was a kid. So I had a lot of respect for him in the modifieds and the Busch North series that he was racing. And, Ted Christopher was the king of the modifieds in the Northeast. And we lost Ted a few years ago in a plane crash. And, he certainly has changed. We lost Mike Stefanik as well. And it's certainly the two of them not being here has changed racing in the Northeast quite a bit. So I would say, when I was a little kid, it was all Dale Senior. I wanted to be like him and aggressive and not caring what I did and how people reacted, because he was just so awesome at that. And then when I actually started racing full-bodied cars, full-size cars, I was just such a fan of Mike Stefanik's abilities in both, a modified and a full-size, full-bodied car. So that's kind of the mix, I would say.
That's awesome. That is not, I mean, it's always great to have those guys that, especially ones of that caliber. And I don't know, especially knowing them too, because it seems like the modified drivers are a lot closer than any other series of NASCAR out there, for sure.
Yeah,
I'd say. Yeah. But Troy, you got anything? Any other final?
I don't think I have any other final thoughts or any questions now.
All right. If you want to shout out your social medias where people can find you and maybe get in touch with you, and then yeah, Twitter, Doug_Coby. Instagram, Doug Coby.
Keeping it simple, easy to find you.
Doug Coby Racing on Facebook. I don't accept friend requests anymore from people I don't know on my personal Facebook page, because I'm just kind of like maxed out almost with friends, but certainly post as much as I can on the Doug Coby Racing whatever racing page, whatever it's called. So I'm there. I'm around. I'm on social media a lot. So
gotcha. Yeah. Well, it's
Gotcha.
been awesome having you on, and this was honestly a great conversation that we had, and super excited to have you on here. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for
Thank
having
you
me,
very
guys.
much.
Thank
No
you.
Yeah.
problem. Have a good one.
You
Yep,
too.
you too.
That was,
Okay.
dude,
That
that
went
was
a lot
great.
better than that went a lot better.
Oh,
It
I
was
did.
really
I
good.
was doing quite a bit of research when we were sitting here talking earlier. So, but
I
yeah.
didn't. I pulled up his stats for the first time. I'm like, did he do
Oh,
anything?
dude.
Did he do anything in the national series before I ask?
Dude, he's a solid driver, solid career. No, dude,
Yeah.
that was fun. I had fun with that one for sure. All right. Ones
Sitting in
to
front of
watch,
it.
my friend. Ones to watch. We at the tricky triangle this weekend.
Um, we can't say once to watch without saying Kyle Larson.
Yeah, that's true. That's just
But
kind of a given at this
I would
point.
say I'll also say Daniel Suarez. He has momentum from last week, and he rarely disappoints at Pocono. In the times he had a competitive car, he almost won here in his rookie year, and I think he got runner up in 2018 too. So look out for Daniel Suarez.
I think I'm gonna have to agree with you on both of those because yeah, Suarez is actually quietly good at Pocono. And then yeah, it's Kyle Larson. He's gonna be on pole for the first race anyways.
Yeah.
But you know, it doesn't matter in the second race, he'll find his way up there. Um it's Kyle Larson. It's 2021. He's back. I mean, there's a definition of he's back. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And then who's going to suck? Who are you staying away from?
It's kind of hard.
I think I know who I'm gonna go with.
I don't even know like who to like out for really. You can go first on that.
I'm gonna go with my favorite driver because he has been shit since he won, and he has had garbage luck since he won. And the last time we were at Pocono, he did not perform. So I'm gonna go with Ryan Blaney. Oh, it hurts me to say that, but he just has nothing going right for him right now. It's very
Not at
sad.
all.
Very sad.
Damn, I don't know anyone that's really like bad here, honestly.
You know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you could say I have a feeling about Alex Bowman not doing so well. I mean, his performance since his win is kind of he's the 400 car and he's kind of been decreasing and decreasing and it's not all luck. It's kind of performance too.
Yeah, it's noticeable, that's for sure.
Yeah. We could do fantasy.
We can do fantasy at we will do both of them. Since you finished worse than me, you will have the first choice out of us two for the first race, and then I'll take the second race. You have Bell, Suarez, and Byron at your disposal. I believe that's an easy pick.
That's easy pick. I don't know who I'm gonna pick first though.
Well, you also got to remember we do have a road course still too.
Yeah, I know who I'm gonna do. Here's what I'm gonna do. Byron first, Suarez second, because
Byron.
Suarez. I'm gonna give Bell. I'm down there. I'm gonna give Byron the first one. Because his experience will kind of adapt to it more. And Suarez, I'll give second because I'll have the race behind him, and the team will have the info, and it'll be a lot easier for him.
There you go. All right. Um, I gave Nick Larson for the first race. And then the second race, I'm giving him Almirola because he'll probably want Chase for the road course.
Mm.
Yeah, I just figured I'll be nice like that.
Yeah, makes sense.
But since you took Byron for the first race and I gave Nick Larson for the first race, that means I have to use Logano here.
Oh.
And he's not really performing lately.
No.
I mean, he had a He's actually looked like the best Penske car week in and week out. And then I'm going to use Byron for the second race because that way I can have one Kyle Larson for the Road America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Strategy.
Yep. So
That's about it.
that is about it, sir.
Uh,
So that means, and then I'll just tell you who everyone has for Road America. Caden's gonna have Mr. Tyler Reddick. Nick will have Chase Elliott, as mentioned. I will have Larson, and then that means you will have Bell.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think that'll be the most interesting one to watch out of all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if Bell can finally show up on a road course again, that'd be cool with him. That way we can have like a
That'd be
competitive
cool.
looking race. Yeah.
Outro time. So big thanks to both of our guests this week. We had Doug Coby and David Salazar. A lot of insight, a lot of things we learned. It was both amazing conversations. We loved it. I want to say we can't wait for Pocono, but it's Pocono.
It's Pocono.
So we're gonna carry on with that. So again, thanks for watching. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all the major podcast forms pretty much. And like, subscribe, leave a review, all that kind of stuff, and we'll see you next week.
See you guys. Alrighty.
All right.